In 1968, when I was 17 years old, I took the train from my small hometown and went to the big city of Toronto, where I lived for 4 months in the Salvation Army home for unwed mothers. We went to chapel twice a day for hours, and the sisters made sure we begged for forgiveness. And it was time to have the baby. They put me in a cab and sent me off to the hospital. And in the hospital, they put me in a room, and at that time, I was under 18, so I could not have a phone call. I could not have any medication. When the baby finally came, and the nurse said to me, "Do you want to hold the baby?" And I said no. And somehow I knew that if I held that baby, it would haunt me for the rest of my life. The day after I had my baby, the social worker came to get me and took me upstairs. And I walked out of the elevator, and right there was a nurse. And she was holding this little baby. The social worker said, "Is this your baby?" And I could see the jowls that were the very same as his father's. And I knew it was my baby, and I said, "Yes." And she said, "Do you relinquish all rights to this child?" And I said, "Yes." And it was done. Nobody in my family ever said, "Do you want to be a mother?" I had no idea that I wanted to be a mother or what that would be like. About a week after the baby, I gave birth, I went back home. It was a 20-hour train trip. And when I got home, life just went on as before I had left, and I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't talk to my parents about it, and I went back to high school, and it was like nothing had happened. And I failed high school. I just had a really hard time, and I think in 1968, if you didn't talk about it, it didn't happen. But everybody in town knew I was one of those girls that had gone away and had a baby. I slowly fell apart. I failed high school. I made 2 attempts to go to college. I failed those. I married the baby's father, and we married and divorced. I gained 40 pounds. I slit my wrists, and I was completely estranged from my family. And I decided that I would find my baby. I think I just loved my baby, and I didn't know. It was instinctive. And I didn't think about it. I didn't think about my rights. I didn't think about anything. I just wanted to find my baby. And I took every avenue I could. And it wasn't until 41 years later that they changed the law in Ontario that the birth parent could see the adoption records. I got his records. They arrived at the house, and I just prayed that he was safe, that he wasn't dead. Even if I never saw him, I didn't want him to be dead. But there were his records, and he lived, I guess, 25, 30 miles from where he was born. And I wrote him. His name had been changed. I named him John, and it was changed to Nick. I wrote it out and said, "I believe I gave birth to you on April 10th, 1968. I just want you to know I am happy, well, happily married, and I have a good life. And if I could get to know you, that would be wonderful." He emailed me, and it's just, he was open to me, and he said he would like to get to know me, and he had a lot of questions. And then we talked on the phone about 2 or 3 days later. I flew up to see him within 10 days of our first contact. And I fell in love with him right away. And we sat in his house and we talked and looked at pictures. Immediately I knew I had to be the best person I could be in order to have any relationship with him. So I started meditation. It's been 6 years now. I love him when I'm with him. He knows I love him. He knows I would fight for him. We would spend time together, and not a lot of deep questions, just a lot of fun. We were a lot alike. And his wife, Lisa, I adore her. And she's like a best friend to me now. And my grandson said to me one day, because he asked me a lot about how I found Nick and what it was like, and so I told him a lot of stories, and then we were walking out, and he said, "Jann, you would have been a good mother." I almost explode with happiness before I go to see Nick. And I've never had a family like this, where we sit around and we talk and we cook and we relax and we do holidays and simple, and so much joy. I had no idea that families were happy and that they were content. And I'm shocked. I just explode with love with him. And that's the state I'm in when I'm with him. And he lets me hug him. He takes it in. He married his childhood sweetheart, and I know through her that they did talk a little bit about it. I don't think anybody's okay that their mother gives them up at all. And I know part of what meant the most to him was how hard I searched for him, that I loved him and I would not give up, and it meant everything for me to find him. And then after I found him and all this opens up, I can't believe it. Like, I really can't believe it. And I had a wonderful life. Before I met Nick, a wonderful life, full of love and prosperity, and now it's full of joy. And they actually told me this when I gave him up, that he was going to a family with he would be the fourth adopted child. And I think that carried me through, because I knew he was with a family who really wanted him. When I met his adopted mother, his father had died, I met his adopted mother, and she walked towards me and she said, "How do you like our son?" And I know it's terribly hard for her that I came into his life. It was very hard. She thought she would lose him. And I just want to describe her as a Christian woman. She just did the right thing, and she made space for me. And I've never felt anything like it before, of how much I felt I owed this woman. I don't know if it's owed, but I was in awe of her. I don't know if I loved her, but I would have killed for her. I would have died for her. And it was for keeping him safe for 41 and a half years.